Muffin is going to do Sarabash. He is going to use Bash's...
A minute away from his PB with everything goes. Wow! Oh my god! Is that faster?
Is that faster? Big jerk sometimes. He doesn't want to play nice. Oh my good lord!
What a save!
Oh!
He makes it. Wow.
Oh my god! Nice.
Hello everyone on Twitch and welcome to the Ori and the Blind Forest All Skills 2019 Tournament Final. This is a matchup between Ronny and Willson. This is a rerun of last year's finals. My name is Rory. I'm joined here by Shed and Athos, who will be bringing you the first game. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about how we got here and what we're doing. Shed, do you want to give us an overview of that?
Absolutely. This tournament has been it's been rather exciting, to be honest. We had so many qualifier races that fed into a 32-man bracket, some of the best runners of this game and that has ever seen. But so many good optimizations and runs and races. It's been an exciting watch, and here we are in the grand.
That's right, and as we can see, Ronny and Willson have had quite the journey to get here. Willson, well, it looks like they're favored in terms of seeding, but Willson said that he was confident in the semifinal win, wasn't really expecting it. Ronny, while it looks like he had a potential easy matchup in the semifinals with number 13 Hitachi, well, Hitachi's actually one of the third best in the world, so neither of these two have had an easy journey to get here, and yet here they are, just like last year. Last year, this set went to Game 5, so I am absolutely expecting good things from this matchup here today.
Absolutely, I agree. What are you thinking, Athos? What do you think we're going to see in this matchup coming up?
I'm extremely excited about this matchup. I mean, here we have first seed versus second seed. Both very best runners in this game had to battle through the bracket, life and death, beating all those top players, and here they are in the finals 2 years in a row. Willson currently holding the title of last year's victor. He'll be looking to defend it against Ronny.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got Ronny's got a little bit of a vengeance here, but he's been playing a lot more. He's number 2 in the world, and will be trying to take down the former champion Willson here. Should be exciting.
It was really interesting to watch Ronny kind of evolve throughout the tournament. He started out having a little bit of trouble in the qualifier stage. He put up a few mediocre times, but over time he kind of improved himself more and more and more. And in the semifinals, he put out 2:28 runs in a row, which is one of the best times you can possibly get. His second run of 28:05 is only 20 seconds behind world record. It was an amazing performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he can put it up here as well.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Ronny has been showing crazy consistency recently with some of the best times in the world. So, yeah, I'm excited.
All right, and hopefully we will be getting underway here soon enough. We've got our race set up, and again, this is a best of 5. Last year, this matchup went to Game 5. It is going to be exciting. They will both be putting in all the work that they've done, all the best strats, everything. I expect great things, and I'm looking forward to you guys bringing us this commentary. So with that, I am going to drop out. You guys, Shed, Athos, take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rory. So yeah, we will be getting kicked off very soon. Runners are ready. Commentary is ready. Truckers are ready.
Let's get the show started. So we're about to start out very shortly, but before it starts, do you want to talk about Ori as a game?
Sure. If you haven't seen this game before, you might have been watching this tournament as we've gone on in the last month or so. You might be just joining us now. That's the more likely one, to be honest. But Ori and the Blind Forest is it's a Metroidvania platformer. What that means is we're running and jumping as platformers do, but you explore the world as you go along. You find new movement skills that you didn't have before, unlocking more parts to explore, etc., etc. And of course, we speedrun it. It means we go really fast. But at the start here, you'll see the runners will be starting out with really nothing, and will get more and more powerful as we progress. But here we go. Racers lined up, and they're off. Let's go.
Yep, and as you said, they'll be getting more and more powerful as the run goes on. And this is the all skills no out of bounds category. That means the runners will be collecting every single one of the movement skills and going extremely fast towards the end. And the no out of bounds section just means they cannot go out of bounds. They have to remain in bounds of the game. Some glitches that completely break everything are banned. So we're going to see some inbounds gameplay, and they're just going to go as fast as possible.
It's really impressive later on, especially at this caliber of runner. But like we mentioned, right now all we can do is run and jump. At this level, you'll see some kind of crazy optimizations from the runners as well, just where their jumps are, where they're spaced out. It's pretty neat to dig into. There's our first little fight of the game. We've got a rhino fight, but we're going to come up here and collect our first skill of the all skills run, Sign.
Yeah, Sign is not really a movement ability, one of the few that aren't. It's more of a run and shoot type of ability. It can damage enemies. It gives us a first source of damage. And just in a second, both of these runners will show off how Sign and his attacks by killing a few enemies.
Yeah, here we go, the Frankie fight. You might notice, if you have played this game before, you might notice these runners attacking a little bit faster than you'd be expecting. That is just as fast as the game lets you attack via mashing. These runners both run on keyboard and mouse, which means they have attack bound to scroll wheel, which allows them to mash insanely fast without any hand troubles, really. Looks like we actually had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. We had only Wilson's screen up on both runs, so we can actually see now that we have Ronnie's screen as well. Ronnie's taking a little bit of a lead here with some slightly better execution, maybe a little bit better luck on which pickups he's gotten for a small animation. But Ronnie's got a little bit of a lead here. Nothing insurmountable that Willson can't catch up on. Actually, it's basically minimal, as you can see. They are basically tied.
Yeah, it actually looked like Willson had a little bit of trouble with the first trick of the game called the prologue skip, and you just have to do a short menuing thing to skip the prologue and continue
Right
playing.
here, you're going to see a trick called Ghost Door, where the runners put the keys in the door and then saved and then died and respawned, and all that did is it skipped the animation of the door opening so they can just go right through. We'll do that a couple of times throughout the run. Just a small little optimization trick here.
Oh god.
Both of our runners there. So both of these runners run the 3 HP route. They only get 3 HP for the whole game, but they went up to faking us out a little bit, going up to grab the 4th health and then not actually getting it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Good stuff. But yeah, since they didn't actually grab that 4th health, they will have 3 health going through most of this run, which is quite scary, quite difficult. It's not a very large amount of health, and many things later in the game will be able to one-shot them.
Yeah, for that reason, most of the runners in this game grab the 4th health, so it doesn't lose that much time. But these guys want to fight for every second, for every frame, so they're of course going to be skipping it. And
fighting for every frame by going to get it and then not actually getting it, so you get the time loss and the low HP. Good stuff. Meanwhile, we have now made it to the wall jump tree. This is our first major movement skill that we have acquired, and as you can see them already using, they can use it to jump up walls. Ori is a kind of platformer where the wall jump ability allows you to climb up a single wall. Sometimes platformers will force you to jump back and forth, but no, we can use it on a single wall. And it is quite impressive. Similarly to how you were seeing these runners spacing their jumps on the ground up to this point, they space out their jumps on the walls as well for
Yeah, so throughout the run, we do pretty careful XP management. We need to collect a very certain amount of XP, and right now, they are collecting enough XP to set up for this trick called the Frankie Lock, which is a huge sequence break that allows us to keep going left around Spirit Caverns and allows us to go to Grotto directly. Yeah, so right now we're entering Blackroot Barrows, which is a very scary part of the run. There's a lot of spikes and they all do a lot of damage. If you fall into it, they're actually just gonna straight up die. And you'll notice they actually go for slightly different routes here. Ronnie is going for the magnetless route, which allows him to pick up quick flame. It will allow him to kill enemies a bit faster, but on the other hand, Willson goes for magnet, and he'll be going for the genocide route. In the genocide route, Willson does not have to stop for the 100 XP orb above, and he just compensates for that by killing a bunch of slimes.
Yeah, there is a slight difference in those routes. Shouldn't be too much in terms of lead gained or lost. Looks like Ronnie has made his cycle perfectly fine. Willson is coming up on it, and he looks good as well. So no major time loss in Blackroot as of yet. Still a little bit of platforming to go, but shouldn't expect to see too much trouble.
And it's great to see Ronnie getting it so well. He had a lot of trouble in the qualifier with falling down and losing a lot of time in Blackroot. So very well done here by Ronnie and Willson as well.
Absolutely. The rest of this is just cycle based, a little bit of slow waiting. But the reason we're doing this area now is this is Blackroot Burrows. It's an area exclusive to the Definitive Edition. It's new to the Definitive Edition, so if you played the original game, you didn't see this area. But notably, it adds 2 new skills, and since this is the L skills category, we have to get them. The first one that we're going to be collecting here is Dash, and Dash is very fast, which is why we're collecting it now as soon as we are capable of doing so. Coming up, we're going to have a little cutscene where he puts an orb in this pedestal and lifts the darkness out of this area, allowing us to collect Dash. We're going to be skipping this cutscene with a save anywhere, moving behind the ability menu here, leveling up an ability and saving by doing so in the middle of the cutscene and then reloading to skip it. You'll see a little bit of a strange variation here where Ronnie's, and I believe Willson as well, is going to stack 2 cutscenes on top of each other instead. No, Willson did a full skip. Okay, so Ronnie's going to stack these 2 cutscenes and gain control during the tree, whereas Wilson's going to have to wait for this tree animation. But here's some blind movement.
Yeah, so the blind movement is really scary here. If Ronnie messes up, he can fall on the pit and lose a lot of time, and he gets through. Nice job,
That is
Ronnie.
insanely difficult. Well done. Wilson's going to need to stop to get an extra slime here to set up his XP correctly. That's a little bit of time loss, but it's not too bad. But here, Ronnie is now setting up for Frank.
That's the Frankie Walk was the skip I was mentioning earlier. It allows us to open a 4 energy door by only having 2 energy. And the way it works is we put 2 energy in the door, then we kill the Frankie, level up, and then when we level up, we gain 2 more energy, and that allows us to put the remaining 2 energy and open the door. See, there's going to be a slightly different method that the 2 runners are using. Since Ronnie does not have magnets, he has to kill the Frankie in a very precise position in order to be able to grab the XP. This is very dangerous, and he has missed the trick a few times, so let's see if he can get it here.
Setup looks good. There's the XP. He got the level up. Perfectly executed. But it's not over yet. We're into Death Gauntlet now. This area is still very dangerous, especially with their HP. Willson on the right, getting his Frankie Walking is also into the Death Gauntlet. Ronnie is almost done. If either of these runners die right now, oh my gosh, that was close. If he had died there, he would be back to the dash tree, but avoiding that major time loss, keeping up with Ronnie here, and we're down into Gumo's hideout. Oh, Willson takes a quick fall, but that's not too much time loss there. Still alive and heading as well into Gumo's hideout.
Yeah, so we have a very, very precise cycle that Ronnie just got on the left side, saving him about 8 seconds. Really well done by Ronnie. Willson is going to be doing the same thing on the right side of the screen. He's going to be doing a few precise dashes in order to set up these crushers and flip right through. So let's see if he can get it.
He gets it as well, so he makes up the time that Ronnie, they break even basically. They both got that cycle, saved the 8 seconds. Ronnie did another ghost door and is heading down to our next movement skill tree. These runners are moving so fast. It's so hard to talk about all of this stuff. This is these paces that they've gotten down here to the double jump tree on are very good. Willson taking another quick death, but not too bad.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of a high five here going as Ronnie did a little bit of blind movement and climbed up the ball, so very well done by him. Willson will be grabbing double jump as well, as Ronnie will be heading out of Moon Grotto and towards the Ginzo tree.
Yep. Double jump, of course, does exactly what it says on the tin. You can jump twice now. You'll see the runners using double jump to climb up walls faster than we were doing before. This is a slight optimization. Here's Grotto skip for Ronnie. That's a precise set of wall jumps. Very nicely done. No trebles. Willson will be coming up on that soon as well. We'll see how he does.
So then the game intends you to go to the left and then chase Gumo around and do a lot of platforming sections. But we just skip that by doing a precise jump. You'll see Willson attempted as well on the right side of the screen.
Little bomb.
Looks like Wilson's having a bit of trouble. You can see how precise the trick is. maybe the nerves slightly getting to him. He's been telling us that he has a little bit of trouble with nerves, but there you go, gets it. Nicely done, Wilson.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate. You really don't want to take too much time loss on that, but Wilson having a little bit of trouble with it. That's one of those tricks that can just get you no matter how good you are at. Ronnie has collected the water vein now, broke some cutscenes to get it, and now we're going to break a couple more cutscenes on the way up here. The water vein is an item that we picked up, which is going to allow us access to the first dungeon, the Ginso tree, which is exactly where we're headed next, just with some wall jump, double jump movement as we progress here. Up and up through Moon Grotto.
This is perhaps one of the most technical sections of this run. It has a lot of precise jumps, a lot of optimizations with dash and different glides. So it's really cool to see how quickly these runners are navigating. And Ronnie is really getting the lead here by having slightly more optimized movement. And he's going to be going for a quick cycle here on the left side of the screen. He's going to try to split by those crushes before they can go to him, and he gets it.
Nice. That's pretty tight cycle as well. Good on Ronnie for making it. Yeah, we're seeing Ronnie take quite a sizable lead here over Willson, mostly due to just slightly better movement and of course those pretty major grotto skip failures for Willson. But certainly not uncatchable for Willson, if that's a word. That's a word now. I'm called.
Yeah, sure, we can make it a word. But Ori is never over until it's over. Almost any lead can be caught up. But meanwhile, Wilson misses the cycle. Not too big of a deal, only a few seconds. And Ronnie on the left side of the screen has entered the Ginso tree.
Ronnie entered the Ginso tree at a time, like the time that he got when he entered the Ginso tree is so absurd for anyone that isn't one of these top caliber runners. It is ridiculous how fast Ronnie gets through this game.
Yeah, he's going to be heading forward into a puzzle room, which is kind of boring and not very interesting. So we can watch Willson make his quick work of the Ginso tree.
Yeah, this dungeon is pretty neat. It's very vertically oriented, so you get to show off all of this wall jump and double jump stuff that you've been using to get to this point, except in a fancy.
Yeah, and I think Willson does this trick called the telehop, so he's going to be jumping back and forth from the portal to get up there. Wow, very well done by Willson.
That's always awesome. Yeah, so what happens there is the teleporters refresh your double jump. So with some precise inputs, you can do exactly what it did there, go back and forth. Ronnie's on the mini boss of this area now, the first mini boss of the Ginso tree. You're supposed to have an ability to do this fast, but we just have to mash out some spirit flames. Ronnie got the absolute most optimal cycle you can get on that mini boss, a 3 cycle. Very, very difficult to pull off. So I would expect Willson to miss it, honestly. I would have expected Ronnie to miss it, but he got it. So we'll see if Willson can manage to match that.
Yeah, and Willson going for the magnet route, of course, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't actually have the quick flame ability. Right. So the best you can possibly do is a 4 cycle. So on the right side of the screen, you're going to be trying to get that 4 cycle, but it looks like the minimum respawned right there. So 4 cycle is not really going to be possible for Willson. Gives a little bit more time to run.
Unfortunate. Meanwhile, Ronnie has made it to the bash tree. This is our next movement skill in the route, and it is extremely powerful. If you have not seen this skill before, bash allows Ori to grab lanterns, projectiles, enemies, many things, and push Ori in one direction and the thing in another. And as speedrunners, as you can expect, we can use this to great effect, moving a lot of things in places unexpected, doing a lot of tricks with it, generally going insanely fast. We're also on Ronnie's side on the left now, setting up for key dupe.
Yeah, key dupe is a key duplication trick where Ronnie is going to die while his keystones are in the door right there. Gets it. It's kind of precise. You have to be very close to the door. And this essentially duplicates our keystones. So we had 3 keystones, and now we died, and we still have the 3 keystones. But now we're going to have 7 keystones instead of 4 as the game expected to have. We'll be using these keystones to open some doors later on.
Yeah, there's some keystones that are what you're intended to get that are very slow to get, so we're going to do that key dupe instead. We're on the mini-boss 2. This mini-boss is a joke, especially compared to the first one. Oh, never mind. Okay. Alright, Ronnie, taking it down to the second Ginso mini-boss. That's an uncommon occurrence if I've ever heard.
As we like to say, free until it's not.
Exactly. So, again, if you've played this game, you might remember the Ginso Escape, a wonderful section of the game with some great music, and we're not doing it. Ronnie and Willson both will be teleporting out of the Ginso tree at the top, because the Ginso Escape, you're supposed to clean the water that's around the world, and we don't need to, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, we'd love to do it, but unfortunately it's about 35 seconds slower, and we don't have that time over here.
Absolutely not. Instead, we're going to see Ronnie setting up for a trick we call Swamp Entry. This is the second major sequence break in the run, Frankie Walk being the first. Here is Swamp Entry for Ronnie. We've got some blind movement. He's going to be heading off to the right through a little bit of a spiky puzzle. Next to a frog, we're going to take this frog to a place he's not supposed to be and use this frog's projectiles to break into a place we're not supposed to be. Good stuff. Oh, the shot unfortunately phasing through the ceiling there. That can just happen sometimes. It's so unfortunate, but Ronnie getting it nicely on the second try, and we are into Swamp.
Yeah, the hitboxes of these shots are a little bit weird, but it's very nicely done by Ronnie to recover. It might throw off your rhythm when you miss that, but Ronnie is having none of it, gets it anyway.
Willson on the right is now setting up for his Swampy entry as well. This is a little bit of a chance to catch up some time if he gets it first try.
And so, looks good. He's going to use the first shot to break the first barrier. Now he's going to grab the spell, double bash the second shot,
Nice.
and break the second. Nicely done by Willson. That was perfect Swamp Entry.
Meanwhile, Ronnie on the left has collected the Stomp tree. This is a skill that's basically sort of a ground pound. It makes a lot of sense. It's also faster to move down a lot of gaps to stomp, so you'll see these runners using it for that. It's also important for some other tricks coming up, but we can talk about those when we get to it. A little bit of a high five from our runners as Willson heads up to the Stomp tree and Ronnie is heading out of.
So we're at Stomp tree, and this is still a very, very close race. We're coming up to the later game sections, and in the late game, we don't really have much energy to spend on saves. Of course, saves costing energy, and essentially, we want to spend this energy for an ability called the Charge Dash, which we will level later. And those Charge Dashes will allow us to go really fast, but it will leave no room for saves, which means that a mistake can cost a very, very long time. Meanwhile, on the left side, Ronnie's going to be attempting for a cutscene skip, and you didn't see anything. I think we got it.
Very precise little cutscene skip there, bashing through a cutscene trigger without actually triggering it. Nicely done. Missing it is quite a lot of time for runners at this level, so we'll see if Willson manages to match it. Having some trouble with this frog, Willson is on the right, but makes it up, grabs that ability cell.
So now Willson is heading towards his own Kura cutscene skip, and if he gets it, then he's going to be just jumping over a cutscene trigger and not triggering the animation. We'll see if he can get it.
Nice.
And beautiful position get.
Now Ronnie has made it to the Charge Flame tree. You're supposed to get this tree like almost immediately after wall jump, but we skipped it and we have to come back through it here. We collect it now because it's the all skills category. We have to, and it's right here. And of course now Charge Flame also unlocks. Oh, hold on. I'm going to interrupt myself. Willson on the right is attempting a very nifty little cutscene skip and unfortunately misses it and is going to have to watch this cutscene. That was really close, but unfortunate of him to miss it.
It's a ridiculously difficult trick. There's only a few runners in the world that even go for it. Ronnie doesn't in this race, and it saves a few seconds. Willson is very, very confident in it, but unfortunately couldn't quite get it this time.
Yeah, that is quite unfortunate. But yeah, the Charge Flame tree, notably having Charge Flame unlocks more of this ability tree that you're seeing on Wilson's screen, which is going to allow us access to that Charge Dash trick that we mentioned, or not really trick, movement skill. There you go. Ronnie is now doing some fancy air dash movement. That was a little bit spooky, but we have made it up. We're going to be heading up the Valley of the Wind area on the left side of the map and your screen here, coming up on a trick called Fast Stompless.
So what Ronnie's going to do right now is he's going to go up here, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go through, bash the bird, and stop the rock that the Kura, the big bird, is sitting on. But we're going to do something else. Ronnie's going to fire a shot at a precise angle, go down. The shot is currently flying towards the rock. He's going to just spawn the rock by going far enough away, grab the ability cell, and the rock should break, and they do.
Nice! Not only does that break the rocks above Kuro's head, which unlocks the glide skill, it also teleports you back to this area. So if he had missed that cell, he would have had to go and get a backup for it, which would have been quite an amount of time lost. Wilson's going to be attempting Fast Stompless as well. Meanwhile, Ronnie is now going to collect the glide skill. It allows you to float down at a slower speed than normal. Pretty useful, also lets you ride wind currents. But more importantly, we're now going to unlock Charge Dash, which does many things. It costs energy, is fast, and also lets you rocket jump as Ronnie flies up the main room of this area.
Now time for Solar Bash. On the left-hand side of the screen, Ronnie is going to be manipulating some birds. Very precise, gets through all these spikes and gets it very well done.
That is not an easy trick.
This will allow him to get into Sora much earlier than expected. You're supposed to for wind, go to Forlorn, that's very slow, we don't like that, we just go straight to Sora.
Meanwhile, Willson on the right successfully completed Fast Stompless, so not taking any time lost there. Ronnie is now in Sorrow, though, performing Crazy Juggle. This is, oh my god, that was close. This is a series of many very precise inputs. There are only a few frames that Ronnie can do this trick, and he successfully makes it up. That is the kind of thing that separates the truly top runners of this game from those aspiring to do it, is consistency at tricks like that. That is insane to do that first try.
Yeah, very well done by Ronnie. This trick can be catastrophic if you don't get it, as we've seen in one of the semifinals. But Willson, on the other hand, is going to have to do his own Crazy Juggle after passing Sora Bash very well on the right-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ronnie on the left is going to be skipping a Sunstones cutscene, doing just that for now, but watch the right side. Willson is going to have to match Ronnie's Crazy Juggle here if he wants to stay in this race. He unfortunately hits the frog, which means he is not going to be able to do it. Takes a death even and is all the way back to Valley. Has to do Sorrow Bash again. That is so brutal. And this is going to allow Ronnie to take a significantly substantial lead, more so than he already had in this race, as he makes it to the charge jump tree.
Willson will have to do Sora Bash again and get Crazy Juggle this time. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Being on 3 HP, these frogs kill you in 2 shots is very scary. Let's see how he can do it this time.
Watch the right. Can Willson make it? Have a little bit of a high five here as Ronnie's stomping his way out of Sorrow. Willson is heading up with this frog, doing pretty well. Oh, okay, he's made it up, and he has successfully done his Crazy Juggle now and will be progressing on. Meanwhile, Ronnie on the left has collected Charge Jump and the Sunstone out of Sorrow Pass. That is another movement skill. Charge Jump lets you jump upwards at high speed and break barriers above you. Meanwhile, the Sunstone is the key to the final dungeon, which is where the end of the game is, so we kind of need that in a category that doesn't allow out of bounds. But we're now into Misty Woods. This area is terrifying for Ronnie on the left, as all of these spikes deal 3 damage, which is all of his health. He cannot take really hits from anything. There's a couple things he can take hits from here and there, but it's very precise still, can't take damage, and there's a lot of very fancy movement that Ronnie is pulling off.
Now this is one of the coolest parts of the run. We have all the movement abilities, and very few glitches. We just use all of them to go as fast as humanly possible. And yeah, going fast, any spike, missing the spike will instantly kill you is very scary. While Willson on the right hand side has a little bit of trouble in Sorrow. Hit a few spikes here and then died on the laser as well.
Yeah, that laser is insta-kill regardless of health, and the spikes are also insta-kill, dealing a lot of damage to these runners. Willson has finally made it to the charge jump tree and will hopefully be joining Ronnie in Misty soon. But Ronnie is flying through this area, lots of fancy movement, optimizations, charge dashes, canceling those charge dashes to refund the energy, things like that. It is just a joy to watch and to play.
Yeah, most certainly. I think everyone of the Ori community can agree that running is one of the funnest parts. Willson is still having a little bit of trouble in Sorrow. Let's go ahead more and more.
Yeah, at this point we are closing in on the end game of this run. So it looks like Ronnie is going to have a pretty insurmountable lead for Willson. It's going to take some serious mistakes on Ronnie's part that I just don't think are going to be happening, knowing Ronnie and his play especially. Goodbye, Mini-Boss.
At this caliber, we really don't expect Ronnie to make any mistakes. He's playing right now, he's evaporated as Mini-Boss. He just has to execute, and he's going to be making his way to the final grenade.
Yes, he will be doing that. And then, of course, from there to the end of the game. So, as I mentioned, we are closing in on the end. Willson, after having some of that trouble in Sorrow Pass, is making his way through Misty perfectly fine so far, at least. There's a little bit of ways to go. Ronnie has made it all the way out of Misty and will be teleporting back to Glades, the starting area, to head back into Blackroot. I mentioned earlier when we collected Dash that Blackroot had 2 skills. Dash was the first one, Grenade is the second. So we're now going to be collecting that Grenade.
And Grenade isn't really useful to us as a whole. We don't really need it, but it does unlock the trick of the Grenade. It's a very perfect effect to allow us to go extra fast. We'll be seeing Ronnie put it to use right up.
Absolutely. Here's a little bit of a tight cycle, not the hardest thing in the world to make it past these lasers. We're going to do another Save Anywhere glitch to skip a very long cutscene here. and making it to grenade. Meanwhile, Wilson has made it to the climb tree, grabbed the climb skill. I don't think we ever mentioned climb. It's not especially useful. It's just a skill that we need to get that's in Misty.
Yep, and it will be useful with grenades.
That's true.
Ronnie is going to show us on the left-hand side of the screen right now. He's going to be jumping up to the wall and doing a grenade jump to go really, really fast. And we'll see if he can get out he goes.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Athos, grenade jumps are one-frame inputs. You have to press jump and then grenade exactly 1 frame later, so it can be a little bit tough to pull off. Consistency with them is rather difficult, but Ronnie has shown prowess with them in the past, making his way through this boulder escape, or this little boulder chase area to grab another health cell. We mentioned that these runners are going 3 HP throughout most of this run, but we need to grab a little bit more health now. Because the final escape of this game has a section of water in it. And you might remember, we never cleaned the water. So that water is still poisonous in the final escape, and you need 5 health to make it through that swim in the final escape. So Ronnie is now grabbing his 5th health here. Willson will be doing the same with the same 2 health cells that Ronnie grabbed.
5 HP, 5 health is the absolute limit. But you cannot take any damage in this escape whatsoever if you hope to complete it. But before that, get to the final escape, and we do that.
Door warp, yeah.
Door warp,
So this is the final dungeon. It's Mount Horu. It's very long. It's very challenging, and we're going to do no. I want to take a second to mention here that Ronnie is on absolutely insane pace right now. Looking like we're going to get a 28 when sub 30 is already obscene. There's door warp, by the way. The dungeon's gone. We're already at the end. Who cares? It's a door warp for reference is pressing up to enter a door on the first frame that the game loads in. It's certainly something else. Ronnie going for warmth skip now as well. Going to be doing some blind movement in the final escape to save some time while this cutscene plays. He's doing okay. He's made it through.
Well done by Ronnie. This is very scary. One skip does not actually restore energy, so low energy, you cannot lose it if he wants to finish the run. And if he comes up to the front, gets to 5, the fish is in a good position, 6, 3, 1, and barely put out.
He's fine. The final ascent here in the final escape, he accidentally spawns Kuro. He did not want to do that. This is, oh my goodness gracious. I don't see a way out of this. There we go. The bird takes Ronnie out, and we are going to have to do the final escape again. Warp skip's still working, so we're going to have to do this blind movement again.
Meanwhile, Wilson's still heading towards Swamp. If Ronnie has 2 more pieces like that, that might give him an opportunity to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Wilson is on the way to Horu now, has collected all the skills, teleported to Swamp, and like I said, is on the way to the entrance in his door warp. So another mistake from Ronnie might put these runners really close. That was very scary, but we are up, and here is a final grenade jump, one last grenade jump here to skip half of the final cutscene. There it is, looks good. Ronnie has won this race.
Good game, Ronnie. Very well done. This is going to be absolutely insane time.
It definitely will. Looking like just over somewhere around 29, which, oh my gosh, it's not even like, it's hard to explain to people that don't know this game. That is so insanely fast. Sub 30 is considered you are a master of this game at this point, and getting a 29 in a tournament race versus another one of the best runners in the world is so impressive.
Ted, can you imagine the final stage getting a 29?
No. Oh, he got a sub 29 even, 28.58. Congratulations, Ronnie, taking game 1 in this best of 5 series. It's not over yet, of course. Have to mention, Willson can still take the series, but it's going to be a little bit harder now that Ronnie has a 1-win lead. Willson is now in the final escape as well, finishing up his run. Here's the swim.
Yep, so he passes it from the roll from Kuro by doing a precise jump as well, and setting up for his final jump, also half of the cutscene. Very perfect trick, and this is the first one. Gonna set up for another one. And no stop block.
There we go. GG is Willson. Definitely also a very respectable run. Had a little bit of trouble with Sorrow Pass notably, but pulling it out, still a respectable run. But unfortunately, Ronnie is going to take game 1 here.
As we mentioned earlier, in the late game, deaths cost a lot of time. There's barely any rooms to save. You need all the energy you have, and unfortunately, we took a few steps in this race.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Willson manages to collect himself and pull out better runs for the coming races in this series. We know for a fact that Willson has some trouble with nerves, especially, so he'll have to collect himself, take a breather, figure out what needs to get fixed, and perform better in the coming races. Ronnie, meanwhile, is going to have to keep up this consistency if he wants to win this race, or this series, excuse me.
This level, there's no time where you can just come up and 30. 30 is going to win you almost every race, but not here, not in the finals with Ronnie pulling out 28.
Yeah, no.
It's going to be the battle of the 28 who can pull a lower 28, and Wilson needs to step up while Ronnie needs to remain as strong and consistent as he can.
Absolutely. Very well said. But of course, in the meantime, we're going to let the runners take a break now. Before we start with the second race, don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Yo, what's up, Ori and the Blind Forest speedrunning fans out there, and everyone else who is new to the stream watching? Welcome to Game 2 of the Grand Finals. We had a nice, awesome barn burner in the first one with Ronnie taking it with that insane sub 29 time, and I am super excited for this second one. I am Trojan Dude, and I am joined by none other than Cobra Muffin. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, Trojan. I'm really excited to just be able to cast one of the games in this series because if you don't know these two runners, they are two of the best speedrunners to ever have, embraced this game, right? And so, even in a sense, speedrunners generally impressive with the sort of tech that they bring to the table and the consistency of doing insane movement things. These two runners, they make an art form of it. Just looking at these qualifier times even, finishing so close, within 7 seconds of each other for that average leaving the qualifier stage, just boggles my mind, Trojan.
Yeah, and I mean, having, Willson and Ronnie both back for the same grand finals as we had last year is just a testament to how hard both of these guys work and how consistently good they are to perform in these high pressure situations. Although I will say Willson has always, even in the post game interview, is saying, my God, my nerves always get the best of me and stuff like that. But it's still testament to how good they are. And they do other categories too. It's not just all skills, and that's just it's always a pleasure to watch these guys run.
Yeah, and this bracket really shows how both of the runners had to fight in order to be able to make it back to the grand finals for this all skills tournament. I mean, the quarterfinals, let alone semifinals, just each of their opponents have been other top tier runners. So getting back to this grand finals and being able to put on a show like they put last game, I'm really excited to see what happens next in game number 2.
Yeah, sorry, no, go.
Okay, sorry. That being said, it looks like UncleRonny's going to be occupying the left-hand side of your screen, Willson on the right, and then also in the bottom part of the screen, we have some useful information. We're going to have skill wheels that are going to fill out as our runners progress through the run itself, as well as those first and second place emblems. So if you're kind of confused to see who's ahead, you can just peek down there and then it'll tell you for you.
Yep, indeed. And I'm glad to see Willson this time around got a proper prologue skip and didn't give Ronnie an unnecessary 1 second advance. So we're all square and tied. They're just going to be hopping and prancing all the way over to our first skill, which is Sign, and that's going to be our little attacking friendo for the rest of the run. And after that, then we're going to start progressing towards, the more movement-based skills.
Yeah, for sure, Trojan. Because being in a 2D Metroidvania, finding those skills is going to unlock other portions of the map. Then as we get more and more skills, we're going to be able to combine them in very unique ways in order to bring out certain sections faster. And right now you're seeing the first little bit of tech, which is actually hiding the user interface. This allows us to skip all of the dialogue in the run itself, speeding it up quite significant. But also, as you mentioned, they can attack now, and they're going to be doing it in pairs of 2 before going on a small cooldown. But those pacings from both of the runner are very particular. So both of them having clean fights to start off is going to be really, really nice.
Yeah, and it's always important, especially after, with Willson, losing the first game, to have a very good start, first good, 5 to 10 minutes of the run, just to, get your confidence back going, get the train rolling again. And because mentality is so important when you do these, best of 3 and best of 5 series.
Yeah, it really is. We saw a lot of just very tiny little mechanistic things that Ronnie was able to perform very smoothly that Willson may have tried to give it a second attempt or so. For the grand majority part, Willson's movement has just been super phenomenal through and through. But Ronnie just being able to eke out those executional advantages progressing through. And we're going to see if he can keep going. But, Willson taking a bit of a death, only being on 1 health and not going for this health cell up here means that he can't take any damage as he progresses through that first part there.
Yeah, so those slimes actually shoot out 3 little spikes in kind of a triangular arc. One about 80 degrees, another one at 80 degrees, and one that's straight up. And so when he turns around, since they haven't gone to health refill, They tried to do a little bit of a turnaround right there to avoid it, but I think he cut it a little bit too quickly right there. Thankfully, it's not that much of a death. It probably lost him about 5 or 6 seconds, but it does give Ronnie a bit of a substantial lead in this early game.
Yeah, and as we saw from the last game, Ronnie was unrelenting in wanting to bring it up. Like, the only really big death Ronnie ended up having was in the final escape itself. And even then, that was just a little bit of a weird scenario that ended up happening. But here we go. Ronnie and Willson are going to be at Wall Jump Tree, very close together, and they now have the capability of interacting with walls.
Yep, and now we're not just gonna hop on floors, we're gonna hop on walls, and as we come back out, you'll see them use something called a ninja jump. If you see them do this like weird kind of flip as they go into like the top of walls, or they'll just do a little tiny mini hop, that's them ninja jumping. And that saves, you know, the tiniest of amount of frames, but when you do it over the course of the run, it really adds up.
Yeah, it really does, and especially runners of this caliber are definitely going to be going for those minute little time saves and optimizations in order to try and eke out as much of an advantage as they progress through. So even though we only have one skill out of these like 11 skill locations throughout the map, it's going to be insanely important that our runners do have these tiny little mechanistic optimizations, and they are very, very steadfast in being able to bust those out consistently. But up here on the left, you're going to see Ronnie move around with the ability menu, which is not sort of normal to this. But if he crosses a cutscene trigger and levels up an ability, that saves the game for him. So after he crosses a cutscene trigger, saves the game, this allows us to either enter or skip a cutscene. And we're going to be seeing both this save anywhere glitch throughout the run, as well as just dropping a save and resaving it after we cross cutscene triggers all throughout the run.
Yeah, and on top of that, you may have noticed a little bit of a route divergence. As Ronnie went straight down to that teleporter to do the save anywhere, Willson stopped to get that 15 XP orb, and that's because while Ronnie does the normal 100 XP Blackroot Burrows route, Willson is going to be doing something called Slime Genocide, and he took Magnet for this particular reason in order to kill a bunch of slimes that each give 12 XP, and he's going to be managing his XP that way, and he doesn't have to do that little wall jump that Ronnie is doing right now.
Yeah, Ronnie had a bit of an unfortunate thing happen where he ended up having the orb drop down. He got a slow orb drop after he was kind of floating in the air, and then the spider shot got very, very close. So just a small misstep from Ronnie, and that's actually going to give Willson a slight lead here, because as you mentioned, he is going for this Slime Genocide route, allowing him to catch, that platform cycle right there. So nicely done from Willson, catching that nice platform cycle, and Ronnie also with a nice cycle, using a save and reload to be able to manipulate those in a nice position.
Yeah, and because he had to do that reload to reset the cycles in here, Willson does get one platform cycle of a lead right now. And okay, he did actually wait a tiny bit longer before he jumped over. That was a little bit of an adaptation from the first game where he missed that and he had to kill an extra slime on his way out. So Willson adjusted properly, fixed one of his small mistakes from the first game, and that's really awesome to see going into game 2.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a completely different gameplay that we're seeing out of Willson in this early game. I mean, of course, he took that small death after the ghost door trick earlier in the run, but that only lost him a couple of seconds. Meanwhile, just the other, 6.5 minutes of his gameplay has been completely on point. So this is really great. It seems like Willson is hitting his stride here, Trojan.
Yep, definitely. And I think this was mentioned in game 1, but we're also going to see another divergence right here. Willson waited until the platform was starting to head upward and is going to just have the tree animation play, while Ronnie did it as soon as Ori started getting in the cutscene and is going to be doing something, a cutscene stack, and he's going to actually do some blind movement right here. And he's got to be very careful, because if he messes up this blind movement, he could fall down to the bottom of a pit with the autosave.
Yeah, Willson also having to kill a slime on the way out, but Willson just barely in the lead here as he is going to be the first to start his Frankie walk. Ronnie, meanwhile, does not have Magnet, so he is going to be having to have the Frankie either jump an extra time or he has to end up doing a really difficult wall jump trick to be able to bring in the magnet. So this is so important for Ronnie to be able to nail this trick if he wants to keep pace with Willson here.
Oh man, I was a little feeling sketchy about Wilson's setup right there. Sometimes that Frankie won't aggro as he goes through, and he's not normally in that little bend in the spikes. He was in the front of the spikes. So I don't think there's a way you can re-aggro if he's way over there. But thankfully, Willson got through just fine, and so did Ronnie.
Yeah, both of them heading in, but oh no! Willson takes a death, and he heads all the way back to Dash Tree. So not only is he going to have to start Frankie Walk again, but he's going to have to worm all the way back over to the energy door. And this is right before Willson would have been able to save the game. That is one of the worst early game deaths that you can take, Trojan. Oh, this is not what Willson needed in game 2.
Yeah, that's just unfortunately, like, that I think is one of the most brutal deaths outside of the Valley of the Wind death that's in the mid game, and that is just it's gonna really take a massive mistake or a couple major mistakes from Ronnie to let Willson, get back into it. But hopefully Willson can, shake off that death right there and get through this Frankie Walk again fine.
Yeah, meanwhile, Ronnie both catching the fast crusher cycle to be able to get through there very quickly, and is now going to go into his blind movement. So on the left, Ronnie is going to try and make it a certain way up the wall without taking any hits. So far, so good, and we're going to see where he ended. Yeah, nice. Very nice movement from Ronnie, and he is on quite a great pace.
Yeah, and Willson actually got a safety energy from the slime that he killed after the poison, the mini poison swim. So actually decided to go for a death glide is what it's called from the top of that crusher, and he got it even with 1 HP. Oh, but unfortunately misses the God cycle that I believe Ronnie got. So that's going to be another 8 seconds in Ronnie's advantage.
Yeah, Ronnie also just showing how consistent he is with a lot of this difficult movement. Getting Grotto Skip first try, again, 2 games in a row, and is throwing out all of these ninja jumps, as you're mentioning, which allow him to double jump closer to the wall, so he's able to get a little bit faster. But just slight misstep from Ronnie, but he's just going to climb back up and get over there. Willson just taking a small death on the right, just has to go back to his save at the ghost door, and he is now going to be approaching double jump tree.
Yeah, so he's gonna also do. He realized. Okay, yeah, he didn't actually get to his second skill regroup right there, or second ability, excuse me, in regroup right there. So is doing the blind movement. Let's see how he does. And yeah, that's pretty good as he's on his way jumping over. So that's really, really good movement from Willson.
Yeah, nicely done. So the delta right now between the two runners is over a minute, but as you mentioned, we're going to have to see if Ronnie is going to have a big miss to bring in. This is a best of 5 series, so even if this is another loss for Willson, he still has a chance in this series. But Willson, wow, just showing how he's not allowing nerfs to affect him. Wow, it gets baguette jump too. I mean, just he had so much trouble with Grotto Skip last match, but he busted it out first try, and then just worked it up with another really difficult double jump movement. So Willson definitely is geared in and focused. So if he can keep playing like that, and if Ronnie has a big slip up, as we saw like in game 1, it just took until the final escape for Ronnie to have that misstep. Willson definitely is in the hunt still.
Yeah, again, we're starting to get to the point where these mistakes, you're putting down less and less safety saves, and these mistakes could cost more and more time. In the early game, you have, even with the 2 energy, you get quite a bit. Willson deciding to do the to do a little bit of a different strat right there by doing a dash glide underneath. But yeah, what I was saying is that I think this is the point in the run where those mistakes could come into play, so we'll just have to see as we get a little bit of gamer hug right there on Ronnie's side, but thankfully does put a save down to refill his health, and he's totally fine to do the same strat that he normally does.
Yeah, nice adaptation from Ronnie, just knowing the resources at his disposal and being able to keep track of that, even with his UI hidden. And then does a bit of a cycle manip here from Ronnie's side, is able to get through. Willson on the right gets the fast crusher cycle there, or excuse me, those like spinning spike thingies. Is able to get through that section a little bit faster. He actually ended up missing that in game 1, so once again, just Willson being able to nail all of these tiny little tricks that save us a second here or a few seconds there. Very nice to see. And we're going to see if Ronnie on the left is able to have a repeat performance with his insane 3-cycle from last race.
Oh, I think he was one hit off. That was super close from Ronnie's side. Oh, and was leaving a little bit of XP behind, but does get it, and that's really nice. So Wilson's gonna be trying for that 4 or 5 cycle because he doesn't have quick. So if he does that, he'll stay pretty much on pace with Ronnie at that mini boss.
Yeah, for sure. And then Ronnie on the left is going to be the first to make it over to Bash Tree. He's just trying to take an intentional death there and having a little bit of trouble. And nice dash glide to make it over to the tree. And so Ronnie had a really powerful key dupe section. A little bit of trouble on the second mini boss from game 1, but we're going to see if he's going to be able to bring back that consistency with this difficult movement section.
Yeah, definitely. As we get to go through this beautiful redirect. Oh, nice. Okay, so Ronnie realizing that he was getting a better cycle with those little flower shots and did a little bit of a double bash right there in order to get a slightly more optimal cycle through there. It does save like a second or two, but that's very good awareness on Ronnie's side.
Yeah, nicely done. And
oh, good lord.
Yeah, didn't quite like that key dupe setup, so just double jumping out of it. That's insanely difficult to do on the spot, but Ronnie just very much aware. Yeah, instant replay in the bottom left just to show that again. Nicely done. I mean, this is like one of the reasons why Ronnie is being able to pump out these insanely fast times consistently in this tournament so far, especially in bracket stages. Just very slight adjustments like that. So only losing a couple seconds instead of a huge chunk of time, but only getting 10 of those experience. But Ronnie does check his EXP wheel and he seems to be satisfied with that. So he is going to be the first to head out of Ginso Tree, while Willson is now at Bash Tree.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Willson miscalculated his health right there. I don't think he realized where he was at and actually did not die from that 2 damage boost. So didn't actually get a successful Ghost Star and had to, and fell down. So lost a little bit of time right there. And it's those types of minor mistakes that Ronnie isn't doing, and it's still kind of adding up with Willson at this point.
All right, meanwhile, Ronnie entering this cutscene here is going to be doing some blind movement. We're going to see after he comes out of this how he is going to do on his swamp entry. Moving this red frog over and over. Nice double bash there to follow along with the frog. And now, is the shot going to phase through the floor like it did last time? No, he gets through first try. Nicely done, Ronnie.
Yeah, that he made it just look so trivial, but that is anything but. I like to get that cadence to do that double bash after grabbing the ability cell. Like when we found that route change, that was like the bane of existence for so many people. And just, you know, at this point, these runners are so insanely practiced on it, they can make it look as clean as that. So really great job from Ronnie right there. As Willson is now doing his teleport to Grotto to do his swamp entry right now.
All right, so Ronnie exiting swamp on the left. He's going to be moving a frog around to be able to get ability cell. And meanwhile, Willson, we're on the right. We're going to see if he does opt to do the blind movement again. Last time he went for it and did a pretty good job with it. So yeah, he's going to go for this again. This doesn't really save much time, but it more importantly despawns a laser. So it's a lot more forgiving on the way out as long as you can do this blind movement. So we're going to see where he is. Yeah, nice blind movement from Willson. So he is going to be going for his swamp entry right now, Trojan.
Yep, here we go. So frog shot 1 is going to break the floor. And okay, he didn't do proper movement. Oh, but unfortunately the second double bash doesn't happen. So he's going to do attempt number 2 right here. And oh, gets it this time. Okay, I was very close to not making it all the way up there. But a good second try from Willson right there. And he's going to go for this hyperspeed. And one interesting thing to note, so Ronnie, as opposed to the other people or some of the other strats of some of the other top runners, Does not go for this little cutscene cancel with the debashing of that spider shot. He just opts to go for the safer method of just running up the wall and then just taking the save and reload at the cutscene.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Trojan. This was something that Ronnie was actually busting out during the qualifiers and dropped once he hit brackets and kind of got into it after his first match. And this is just like the style of competitor that Ronnie is, and why he is so prevalent with bringing down his averages, is that he says, you know what, this wasn't saving me anytime, so I'm just going to drop it for the tournament because it could actually potentially bring a huge time loss for me. Also, just later in the game, he's going to be dropping some extra safety saves, which normally he would not do when he's going for PB attempts in the run. Meanwhile, Willson on the right is going to try and match pace to pace with Ronnie with getting this cutscene skip first try. Let's see how it goes. He does not get it, so he has to quit and reload in order to attempt this again. If he gets the second try, it is a tiny bit faster than watching the cutscene all the way through. He does get it. Okay, so Wilson's still saving a little bit of time, but just Ronnie being able to get that first try is going to be further increasing that delta between him and his opponent.
Yeah, very much so. As Ronnie is coming up to another very finicky, hard trick right here. It's called Fast Stompless. He's going to throw that spider shot off, which looks pretty good, and come up to get this ability cell before the Stomp Rocks. Oh, no! And it actually didn't work. So that is a failed Fast Stompless from Ronnie, so he's going to try it again right here. This gives Willson a little bit of time to catch up with some of his other mistakes. And Ronnie's going to wait for it. And did he get it this time? Yes, he did. Okay.
All right, nicely done activating that cutscene there, which always teleports Ori to be able to pick up that glide skill location. Is going to be nice using that spider shot instead of having to watch an additional cutscene and bring Ori over physically to stomp the rock. So not getting that first try is actually going to be pretty nice if Wilson's going to be able to get that first try. But Ronnie, still in a commanding lead, now going to head for his attempts at Sorrow Bash.
All right. And let's see if he can do a good Sorrow Bash right here. He's going to use these birds. He's going to manipulate one of them in order to get into an area we're really not supposed to be in. You're supposed to have wind right here. But man, just nice. Absolutely beautiful Sorrow Bash. But it doesn't end there. We've got another fun trick coming up called Crazy Juggle, where he skipped a ability cell earlier in order to do one less of a method to get through an area, and is going to be doing a bunch of stomp cancels on charge dashes in order to get this frog up, and gets it.
Yeah, that's insane. Each one of those cancels before he bashes off the frog again is between 2 to 3 frames. So Ronnie just being able to match that pacing with only a couple of frames tolerance is just like, that's so insane to see him not only do once, but just do it consistently all throughout the tournament. So nicely done from Ronnie, and he's going to be fast approaching his Sunstone. Meanwhile, Willson on the right went for the Fast Stompless, gets the ability cell, and does get it first try. So that is going to close some of the gap between him and his opponent, but Ronnie still needs to make a big misstep to bring Willson back into the hunt.
Yep. And getting that Crazy Juggle is going to be required of him now that Ronnie made that really clean Sunstone split right there, which is, if you're not aware of Ori, that is the key for the final dungeon that we just got. So now we don't have to worry about getting to the area to finish the game. We can worry about getting the last couple skills. And this one, Charge Jump, is going to be very, very important for the next area, Misty Woods. And since we came here before we went to this, the area before the second dungeon in the game, that is going to make Misty Woods. Ooh, Ronnie taking a little bit of a tiny death. Not too big of an issue right there. Again, just went to the tree and went back. So only lost him a little bit of time.
Yeah, that could be tricky catching up through that area with your movement, especially it just depends where that slime is, before and after you visit Sea Jump Tree. But nicely done from Ronnie, and he's going to head into Misty. And this is what we were talking about, Trojan, dropping a safety save right at Misty entrance. If this was ever a spot where you don't want Ronnie to have a lead, it's Misty. First of all, his movement is definitely one of the best, if not, absolutely incredible to me to just watch. And then he is dropping extra safety going through this section. So Ronnie is just guaranteeing at this point that he does not take that big death. and that he is able to capitalize on the lead that he's been able to grab throughout this game.
Yep, and just a little minor detail note, Ronnie, before getting this cutscene, actually kills that little lantern so that he can chain that C-dash stomp cancel through there, because it will actually target that lantern and throw off his timing. So it's just those minute details that make these guys some of the top runners, and everyone has their own strats as to how they want to approach those sections. As we get synced trees, which is you don't get very often in general, especially different ones.
Yeah, and like also Willson just making quick work of Sorrow, just very, very nice, and woo, almost touching some huge damaging spikes there, but Willson nicely done, just throwing in a few extra feathers to not take almost certain death. Meanwhile, Ronnie down to 1 health. Literally anything that he tries to taste in here is going to cause him to suffer from instant death. Even though some of these pink colored slimes look really tasty, no, Ronnie, they're not made out of cotton candy. Do not lick them. They will cause you to take a death.
Oh man. I was gonna be like, I almost think it's like, you know, that, remember the Fun Dip stuff? Like after you put the sugar with like, it's like the what was the purple flavor? I think it's grape or something. It looks like grape.
Oh man, yeah, those were so good. Ooh, slight misstep here from Ronnie on the mini boss, but no problem. He's just going to back out and take a nice slower fight. He was just completely out of energy after going for it because he spent all of his other energy doing optimal movement going throughout. But he's able to take out the mini boss, and he is going to be progressing on through to try and get out of Misty. Nicely done. Just nice C-dashes here to be able to make quick work of this. This movement is just such a treat to watch, and we still get to Willson. Watch Willson do the second half as well, Trojan.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like the programmers put it in there so we could do perfect C-dash canceling all the way through on the way out, just like we did on the way in. And we're going to, Ronnie is on his way to get the final skill that we need to collect before finishing the run, and that is Light Grenade. And that's going to allow us to do some tech called grenade jumping. And we're going to do some frame perfect inputs one right after another. And that's going to allow us to, lose our horizontal velocity and do some really cool stuff, including skipping part of the final cutscene of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty incredible. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. On the left, Ronnie's going to be skipping a cutscene here, then activating the Spirit Tree and doing one of these grenade jumps almost immediately. Meanwhile, Willson, nicely done, able to get through the meatball shaft very, very quickly, and he is going to be doing his own attempts at the mini-boss. And, just accidentally dashes a little bit too far to the right, but able to have a quick recovery and take it down. And then on the left, Ronnie, come on, man. Oh, yes! Oh, they're so good, dude. I love this.
I know that you're a huge... Oh, no, Ronnie! And he accidentally takes a little bit of the front end of that little wall right there, and then I think jumped after that C-dash and just got caught by that laser, so that's...
Ducked under the laser! Oh my god, the improvisation from Ronnie. Wow, dude. He must have heard us talking about how tasty those enemies and those lasers are, man. And
no! He's back with the grenade. Okay, this is actually big for Willson right now because again, Ronnie died in the final escape. Now he's in that frame time frame where one death could actually be enough to let Willson be tied with him. And this is like very small amount of time between these runners now.
Yeah, this is insane, Trojan, because one of Ronnie's best of 3 matches earlier in this bracket, he actually ended up taking a loss by just a couple of seconds versus his opponent, Terra, because he ended up soft locking in the final escape after taking a few deaths like this. So we're going to see if Willson is able to get through this section really cleanly, and Ronnie is going to end up having a really tragic final escape, which honestly, we are not hoping for this, but this is exactly sort of the buffer room that Willson needed to have the potential to make this race close.
Yeah, definitely. So Willson is doing that grenade jump. And he gets it first try as well. Very nice. And let's see if he gets the quick cycle. I believe that was. So, okay. Very nice adaptation again by Willson right there. He did a little bit of a dash glide to get enough height to get over that laser. because that laser sometimes can really sneak up on you. Even though you don't completely see it, it can kill you a little bit before it fully shows up.
All right, here we go. Wow, Ronnie, ice in the veins, able to just calm down and be able to get that door warp first try. That is a 1-frame trick. And yeah, he's still going for some of the blind movement in this final escape. He's going to quit out and re-enter in order to try and get it. Oh, doesn't quite get warm skip. So now he is going to go for it again, potentially. Meanwhile, Willson is just getting the 5th health cell, and he is going to be heading over to his horror entry. Ronnie does get warm skip this time with the re-entry, and now he's going to be going through.
Oh no, he died!
Takes a death. Willson now at the door to Horu. Trojan, this is getting really close. Ronnie cannot take another death here.
Oh my goodness. He does die again. This is really, really sketchy. If Willson gets first try a door, it's only going to be about like a 15 to 20 second difference between these runners right now.
All right, this is so important. Ronnie is still in a commanding lead, but he's coming up to the final trick. All he has to do is get through this poison swimming section, and 5 HP is just enough to be able to do this. And so he does get past the fish, but up here's grenade jump Trojan, and he has to hit this, and there is a potential to soft block here. So Ronnie, eyes on the left, is he gonna get it? He does, and
He
no
does.
soft.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. Wow, that ended up being insanely close. I mean, he also had to get it pretty close. I don't know how much energy he had left, but it must have only been probably like 1 or 1.5. So he had to get that on first or second try. And let's see if Willson, he's lining up for his grenade jump right here. Goes for a little bit of a lower slot and gets it first try. Wow, this is only going to be about 20 to 25 seconds between these runners.
Yeah, you know, and this is just really showcasing off the state of the series here, folks. Willson, in the beginning of the run, ended up taking a approximate 50-second time loss and having to do Frankie Walk a second time. That being said, though, coming within that margin significantly. So if Willson is just able to close out all of these insanely difficult portions of the run and have a pretty consistent run, he could end up taking a game and get himself back into the series. But Ronnie, just consistent, strong mechanics, being able to push through, and just these slight mishaps at the very end of the run. If he cleans this up and keeps this consistency going throughout the rest of the game, he might just be walking away with a grand championship and a 1 all-skills tournament, Trojan. How exciting.
Yeah, man. I don't know about you, but this game, too, just has made us even more hype for Game 3. And, you know, maybe Willson can take that game and put a little bit of pressure on Ronnie. It seemed almost like after that first death, nerves were getting a little bit to Ronnie, feeling like, oh, gosh, I just lost a good, 20 seconds to that first death. Maybe Willson is still really close right now to me, and he knows that he can't take, multiple of those 20 to 30 second deaths because that'll allow Willson. Their PBs are not far enough to allow Ronnie to have those types of mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. And so major thanks also to Nans and Greaves with helping us behind the scenes. That's for this one. We still have more exciting Ori action coming towards you. Trojan, thanks for helping on commentary, man. And I've been Covert Muffin, and we'll see you for the next game in a couple of minutes.
welcome back to the Ori and the Blind Forest Grand Finals for all skills. Again, this is UncleRonny and Willson going into Game 3. Ronnie is up 2 games already. So my name is Roy Rai. I'm joined here today, this time by Shafe. We're going to be bringing you the commentary for Game 3.
Yeah, and I think this honestly comes down to Willson just sort of shaping up his early game. He's had a really excellent late game, like from double jump onwards, and Ronnie's had some struggles in horror, getting that warm skip and a little bit of trouble spotting curl and that kind of stuff. So if Willson can just clean up the early game, make sure that Sign attacks the appropriate brambles, because that's impossible to do as he's going for Death Collide, then we should be in for a really exciting and close Game 3 here. And I think Wilson's got the nerves shaken out. I think he knows what he's doing. Ronnie definitely knows what he's doing. This is going to be an exciting Game 3.
Yeah, I agree that it's going to be very much coming down to how Wilson's early game is. He's shown a lot of great late game stuff. He's just dropping so much time in this early game. So at that point, it becomes really hard to recover. So I hope to see him sort of recover past that early game barrier and then take a closer race into the mid and late game.
Yep, that's essentially what it's going to come down to. While we have a moment here, by the way, before these runners get going, just want to thank everybody that's been involved in putting this tournament together. Obviously, everybody at Speed Gaming, Shed and Athos, who were on comms to start, Grease, Barrick, Nans, Boogle, Night Fighter, all trucking. If we end up going to Game 4 and 5, we got Skull Blacka, Oshi, and Chicken Supreme will be helping us out on truck, as well as Spark and Sparrow and Ella Jiminy, and Rory, of course, on comms, as well as Covert Muffin and Trojan Dude, who called the last game. Thank you guys very much.
We have quite a large community, lots of volunteers. This tournament is entirely volunteer-based. So everybody puts in quite a lot of time and effort into making sure that these productions happen. But we are now underway, Game 3, heading down towards Sign. Very slight lead right off the bat, very few frames for Ronnie.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of trade-off here in the early game as, one player gets a slightly more optimal hop and the other one doesn't. It tends to be a lot of trade-off. There isn't a whole lot in the way of, tragic mistakes that can happen on the way to wall jump. You definitely can see some unfortunate deaths happen, but usually it's just, a minor little hop there and that kind of thing. Now, Sign here is your basic attack ability in Ori and the Blind Forest. There is an internal cooldown, so you're going to see these runners as they enter this Frankie fight, pacing their shots very deliberately so they don't activate that cooldown, and that enables them to kill these Frankies while moving continuously to the right.
Yep, and one of the great things about Spirit Flame is that these runners on keyboard and mouse can use that scroll wheel to get this sort of optimal shooting cycles. That's what we're seeing here when they do those bursts of 2 shots.
That's right. So Ronnie getting out a little bit ahead, hitting that bounce platform in just a fraction of a second faster than Willson. No big deal.
And it looked like Willson did take an unintentional damage there, so he's going to have to adapt slightly potentially here. But looking pretty okay otherwise. Just heading on to get his Keystone. Fell a little bit behind because of that hit.
Yeah, you're also going to see, you probably saw Willson kind of flickering his UI on and off there. If the UI is on in Ori and the Blind Forest, you get these tutorial little text box dialog boxes that pop up. So you keep the UI off for as much of the run as possible, just so we can save time that way. And they will not be going for their early 4th health cell here as expected.
Yep, they faked us out in that first game, but these two both very confident runners. They don't need the extra safety. They'd rather have the 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. So about a 1 second advantage for Ronnie here in the early game. Not that big a deal. Gets that keystone and heads back off to the left to pick up our first skill, wall jump. Now these runners are collecting very specific amounts of experience as they make these movements, because one of the things that happens when you level up in this game is that you get an explosion that kills everything around you. So they're timing their experience in such a way so that, as you see on Wilson's side on the right side there, the explosion kills the brambles, and that saves about 2 seconds as they climb up out of wall jump. Ronnie, meanwhile, is going to be collecting the experience for that level up on the way out.
Yep, and I wonder how that experience is going to affect Blackroot, because we do have multiple time level ups throughout this run, and again, as we've seen in the last races, that second time level up is going to be for Frankie Walk. It's a 19 experience window, and it's possible that Willson was aiming to hit that on the way out for this first level up and get an extra 11 experience.
Yeah, so we'll see what kind of adjustments that he makes. There you go. There's Ronnie's explosion on the left-hand side of your screen, kills a couple brambles, and jumps off of that rock, affectionately known as the Trojan Rock, and now makes their way off to the right-hand side, where we're going to be seeing our first instance of a Save Anywhere trick. Now what happens with this trick is you open up the ability menu on a save point, and then you click on the little experience orb that pops up in the middle, and you press Proceed and Spirit Flame at the same time. That tricks the game into thinking you've actually closed the window, allowing you to move Ori while the ability menu is up, and when you level up an ability, it saves the game at whatever point you click that. So you're going to be seeing that a lot throughout the run. You might short form it to SA, so just keep that in the back of your head, and it allows us to do fancy things like skip cutscenes and prepare a few tricks.
Yep, so Willson grabbing this extra 15 experience, he will be going for a slime genocide route. He'll try to kill as many slimes as possible in Blackroot, and he'll be taking Magnet, whereas Ronnie will be taking Quick Flame with this cutscene skip here. That is because of that slime genocide route. So I really want to see whether or not that 15, that experience that he missed on the way out of wall jump is going to affect this route. And if he'll sort of stop to kill an extra slime or something to accommodate for that.
Yep, so Ronnie now heading out to the left-hand side to pick up this orb in Blackroot Burrows. The intended path is to carry it up to the left and jump all the way around before you get to a little spiky gauntlet, but you can just drop it, and then the orb will follow you when you stop moving for a long enough period of time, which is exactly what Ronnie does there, picks up that experience right there, gets his level up, and is now looking to hit a specific laser cycle so that he can get the platforms oriented in such a way that he does not lose 8 seconds on the second platform cycle.
Yep, both of them pretty even here. Ronnie, that's still that slight lead that he carried out of the early game, out of Glades. We'll see if the cycles work out for them. Willson coming up on this platform cycle looks like he does not get it, so that's going to be a little bit more time loss in addition to this few seconds.
Yep, so he's got about an 8-second disadvantage there at the moment while Ronnie activates this little lantern here to open up the door and head into Dash, which is a definitive edition skill and is zoom super fast. And even though we go ahead and get this early now, it actually makes the speedrun in comparison to vanilla a heck of a lot faster. So
yeah, and coming into this room, Ronnie did actually miss a platform cycle on the way up, losing a little bit more time because he sort of got knocked back by that slime on the way down. So we'll see Willson gain a little bit more, about a half a cycle now difference separates them.
yeah, so that was a pretty important time save there for Willson. As we mentioned, Willson has been kind of struggling a little bit with the early game. He's been fine up until this point, largely. It's between here and double jump that he seemed to have the most issues so far in races 1 and 2. So as they prepare Ronnie on your left the cutscene stack, whereby he activates the lifting the darkness thing and then waits in order to activate the dash tree at the same time in such a way that they stack and he's allowed to move while the tree animation is playing. Willson will not be able to do that. He's going to have just crushing the orb for the memes, of course.
So now we're going to see Ronnie gain control of Ori during this cutscene and do some blind movement. That's the result of the cutscene stack that Willson didn't do. So we can see, though they were in the tree animation at the same time, Ronnie gains a little bit of a lead coming out of Blackroot just because, and he'll be carrying that into Frankie Walk. We'll have to see whether or not Willson can, like, sort of recover from those first 2 games here on this trick as well, because he's going to not, he cannot afford to drop any more time in this early game.
Yeah, that's right. So Ronnie now takes an extra shot on that Frankie. That's always a little bit spooky in the event that the Frankie gets caught there in the spikes because you can't bait it through with another shot. Not a big concern this time, as he's setting up for his magnetless entry here into Moon Grotto. You're supposed to go all the way around to Charge Flame on the left-hand side of the map, but we don't do that. Leveling up also recovers your energy and your health, and that's what that trick is there for. We get to level up, put 2 energy in the door, and right before the level up, and then afterwards we can put in another 2 energy, which allows us to sequence break into Grotto early. So now, Willson, right side, this time, guess the Death Glide, very nice, as they're going to be heading towards their Crusher cycles now in Grotto.
And it it looked like Willson did also get a health drop there as well, and he's going to place a save immediately. He does not want to be losing any more time in this early section. Ronnie going for his Grotto Cycle, does nail it. Watch Willson on the right as he goes for the same trick. This is an 8-second time save if he gets it, and no time loss. So everything is so far very even. It's just a few seconds separating these two as Ronnie gets his Ghost Door, Willson taking a little bit of damage to set up his, and they're both going to be heading down to double jump.
Yeah, right now it's mostly just some minor, very minor differences in the early game, and then the advantage that Ronnie had by performing that cutscene stack coming off of the dash tree. Otherwise, this is as close as an early game as we have seen for sure, and that separation is fairly minimal as far as this category goes. There's a lot of small time saves available and some pretty spooky moments that are going to be coming up as well. So Ronnie now exiting double jump, performs his blind movement very nicely. Willson matching him on the right side of your screen. Takes a little moment. He didn't like that first jump, so he just took a little bit of an extra safety jump there. Not a big deal. Much better than suffering a death. Now here's the grotto skip left side for Ronnie. Smooth as butter, getting through very nicely. Even gets the baguette jump. Very nice.
Willson, again, going to go for his Grotto Skip. We've seen a little bit of trouble from him in the past, but he nails it this time first try, even dodges that 15 experience orb, which looked very intentional.
Yep, and we only have about a 6-second difference as if they were opening the door heading down into double jump, so a much, much closer race than we had in games 1 and 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to... Oh, Willson, a little bit of a bonk on the log. He's going to be able to recover that pretty quickly. It didn't fall down too far, fortunately, but a little bit more time handed over to Ronnie.
Yep. So Ronnie picks up his water vein. We're going to be heading towards the Ginzo tree. If you played this game casually and you want to hear the excellent music performed by Gareth Coker from the escape of the Ginzo tree, I regret to inform you, we're not doing that. We're going to the Ginzo tree exclusively to pick up the skill Bash, and then we're getting the heck out.
It's really interesting the amount of things that we just get to skip sort of for no reason. Because when you play through this game, when you play through casually, you feel like, oh, there's this very linear progression. It's hard to do things sort of out of sequence, and yet here we see everything is just completely out of sequence. The Ginzo tree is one of those things.
Yeah. We also grabbed some keystones in Ginzo because we're supposed to grab those in Swamp, but we don't clean the water, so... This is going to be an extremely fast Ginzo entry for Ronnie. It looks like he's going to be at about 11:22 or so. That is nutty.
Yeah, this is just absolutely insane times. I can't even get this sort of time in my out-of-bounds categories, and they do it without any of the silly clips in the early game. It is absolutely amazing to watch. But Willson, not far behind.
Not far behind, no, but he did lose a little bit of time between double jump and here. He's about 18 seconds behind now. So a little bit of room to catch up, but that 18 seconds is as simple as Ronnie missing the Kuro cutscene skip coming up, and not too far from now. It's a very clean movement, dashing through those portals which reset your jumps, and then hitting that that platform there. Does get hugged by a gamer, as he did in the last game. So if Willson gets a little bit of clean movement here, he's going to be able... And he's going for the telehops as well, right-hand side of your screen. Very nice job by Willson, and he is up through the first section of Ginzo.
We're going to see that that intentional death from Ronnie was just to set up this fireball cycle in this room, so that we get the first cycle instead of the second cycle. I believe we'll see Willson going for the same in just a second. There's his death, and we walk into this room, we get that cycle. Willson going to place another save, presumably just to recover health. Ronnie into the mini-boss, hoping to see a 3-cycle, because of Quick Flame, that's optimal, but 4-cycle, much more common. One more shot should do it. There it is. Ronnie's mini-boss is dead. He's going to grab that XP and head on into collect the keystones for Bash.
Willson, right-hand side of your screen, is onto his second cycle now, the third. His most optimal, since he does not have Quick Flame, is the 4th cycle, and he was one volley off as well. Not unanticipated, but it does mean that he is going to be able to catch up any time on a slightly faster cycle there.
And that is the benefit of that Quick Flame route, is you get to save that time on the mini-boss while you lose one hop on the Frankie. That's why Ronnie does that. So Ronnie picks up his bash skill. Willson, takes a little bit of a hit, gonna have to improvise here. We normally don't take the hit in that specific location. But he's good, he recovers, sets up his ghost door, and collects his own bash.
So in the last game, Ronnie, coming up on his key dupe, he had a last second adjustment where he would have actually failed the key dupe. Well, we'll see how he performs here on the left-hand side of your screen. Both runners now have bash. Approximately 20 seconds difference. So Willson losing just a second or two more inside of Ginzo, but still keeping well within striking distance of Ronnie. Here's the key dupe now, left-hand side.
And Ronnie, in order to do this, he's got to put the keys in the door while dead, and that will give him both the keys and reload them on the map. He did have to do some interesting things on the setup for the save, so he's losing some time here. Willson gets his key dupe off and is very, very close now.
Yeah, he had to wait for that an extra shot from the Mortar Shark after a little bit of shenanigans there. So they are going to be actually entering the door just seconds apart now. Second mini boss. We did see a death here in this best of 5 series. Both runners looking good so far. They both get the mini boss down, and they are going to be heading out now to perform one of the more difficult tricks in the run, Swamp Entry.
Yep, this is a potential for a lead change here. It is still a very close race. Ronnie continuing to hold just a couple seconds over Willson. So we'll have to see if these this next challenge of the frog with Swamp Entry sort of changes that up, or if Ronnie can hold this advantage.
Thanks, Google, for the assistance in the truck with catching exactly what happened with Ronnie there. He actually killed the Mortar Worm, so he had a bit of an awkward damage boost that he had to perform there.
Yep. Only a 1 second difference. Both of them going for this laser cutscene skip, so they do have to do some blind movement. Ronnie gets all the way to the frog. Willson as well. Sets up for the Swamp Entry. First shot for Ronnie. It's good. Grabs the cell and does not get it to phase through, so everything is good. Willson as well, first try. Great stuff.
Very clean from both runners. Ronnie doing a quick reload here for a hyperspeed. If you dash and then rekindle immediately after, you will actually maintain the speed from the dash when you reload the game. So just a very minor, like barely saves any time. Ooh. Oh, that is disastrous for Ronnie. So he tried to bash up, and the Mortar Worm left some spiky brambles up on that beam, and he bashed up into those brambles and then fell all the way down in the water. So we have a lead change. Willson is now ahead at Stomp.
It's not much, but it is enough for this little brief second. About a skill tree animation. Willson does get his first... Is this his first lead of the series?
This is his first lead of the series, yep. Aside from like just minor stuff in Glades. Having a little bit of trouble on that beam though. He's coughing up some time that he gained in that section. So those are the kind of little minor things that Ronnie is definitely going to be taking advantage of, and Willson cannot really afford to. He's down 2 games in this series. He needs this win, or the tournament is Ronnie's.
Yep, and I just once again, while we're here, want to reiterate that this is a rematch of last year's finals, which went to Game 5. So for Ronnie to potentially be threatening a 3-0, that would be a pretty huge change.
Yeah, and last year was actually Willson that had the 2-0 lead, which ended up nearly being a reverse sweep. Ronnie came back 2 games, and then Willson eventually took Game 5. So both runners, in the meantime, get their Kuro cutscene skip. Willson maintaining his lead. He looks like he's going for the double bash cutscene skip here. As is Ronnie.
Going for this. Willson nails it. You have to get the stomp off to break the barrier before the shot hits it. They both get it. We used to think that was something that only the TAS would do, but the top runners have recently started incorporating that silly little skip into their own runs.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with speedrun terminology, TAS, TAS is a tool-assisted speedrun. It's basically a computer performing the run as fast as possible. There's people that do all the work behind the scenes to like inputs manually to try and get like the most optimal run. But yeah, we thought that was basically a task only thing until quite recently.
Right, so they've both made their way into Valley, about a 6-second difference in favor of Willson. The bird does bonk, that's a little bit of time loss, and it's these small things right now that matter a lot. Until we see a major mistake, which I personally hope we don't see a major mistake, but without a major mistake, these small things are going to be what decides the leads.
Little bit of trouble getting that frog into position, which Ronnie did not have any issues with. So again, they're just, minor little quarter second, half second differences. We'll see what ends up happening here with Fast Stompless. We did see some issues with it in the last race. So Wilson's going to be the first one to attempt it here on the right-hand side of your screen. Bashing up here, your intended route is to actually bash across the lanterns and then stomp the rocks. But if you take the spider shot, fire it off to the left, that bonked into the ceiling. He has to reset that.
And Ronnie's ahead.
And Ronnie's ahead. He gets Fast Stompless first. By the looks, yeah, he does. So another lead change.
But this looks good for Willson.
It does. Just to finish the explanation, right, if you take that spider shot, fire it off to the left, and the rocks that would be obstructing it, if you move to the right fast enough, will be despawned, allowing the shot to break the rocks. So you can collect that ability cell and basically do a 2-for-1. So here's Sorrow Bash coming up. And the rocket jump our way up, which is charge dashing at an enemy above us, and then we cancel it with a jump, which allows us to travel very, very fast, because the game forgets what your speed cap is.
Yep, there are a lot of ways of canceling charge dashes. Some of them refund energy, some of them make you go really, really fast in a different direction. And rocket jumps is one that makes you go really, really fast. Stomping and bashing will refund that energy, so we're going to use that to bring these birds up here and get us into Sorrow Pass without the wind. Now we're going to see Ronnie rocket jump up here to break this barrier, and then he's going to go for Crazy Juggle. These are 3-frame inputs. Any mistake here kills the frog, and he has to reset the entire thing.
Yeah, we saw Willson have an issue with that. Looks like his setup is good. Ronnie gets it successfully on the left-hand side, breaks the ceiling, rocket jumps up to the sunstone. Willson now in the middle. He damages the frog again. He has to reset it, and he's going to get this backup frog here.
Yep, this is going to be slightly better than resetting to Sorrow Bash, but it's still really, really unfortunate. It's time loss Willson can't afford right now.
So he's got the backup frog. This one's much easier to get through. You have a much bigger window in terms of the frog's health, so it's not as nerve-wracking. Wilson with his rocket jump up to the sunstone, and we will get an updated time for you on the difference between the runners as they head towards charge jump.
Yep, Ronnie over here, another ghost door before charge jump. That is going to be, I believe, the last ghost door that we'll see this run. The final key door that we see in Misty, there's not really a way to ghost door it. And Ronnie will pick up charge jump. This is the last movement skill that really matters until we get both climb and grenade.
Yeah, climb doesn't do a whole lot for us until we get grenade. We'll explain exactly what grenade jumping is as we get to it. It is effectively rocket jumping off of a grenade, but we'll explain it more as we get to it.
It's a sideways rocket jump. It's
Yeah.
all good. Ooh, almost hits the spikes there. Ronnie just barely avoiding resetting the charge jump tree, but he does make it almost out of Sorrow, just past this bird and back through the Sorrow Bash elbow and down towards Misty.
Yeah, so the rocket jump downwards, we affectionately call it meteor kick, very nice from UncleRonny, left-hand side. And this is what you were talking about earlier with the energy refunds. When you charge dash at an enemy and then bash it immediately, you get that energy back, as you can see from Ronnie conveniently leaving the UI up for us, as well as the stomp cancel there. Alex, this keystone is heading off to the right towards the cutscene, as Willson now is heading his way out of Misty. Nice little weave there through the spikes. These runners both on 3 health, means if they touch any of the spikes in Misty Woods at all, that will be a death, and is one of the reasons that you're going to see Ronnie probably place one more safety save here, as he has been doing, heading towards the climb tree. There it is. And now he floats through the spiky room of death.
Yep, both of these runners are very aware of the stakes of this match, and this game in particular, and neither, I believe, wants to take any sort of catastrophic death. That's why we are seeing those slight safety strats.
Yeah, especially since this is potentially the last game of the tournament. I don't think Ronnie is particularly enamored of, leaving some gap for Willson. He knows Wilson's very capable of catching up, and Ronnie very well aware of some of the issues that he's had in the final dungeon of Mount Horu. So, just dropping that one little extra energy at the cost of a charge dash is much, much better than losing like a minute and a half to a significant death here in Misty Woods.
Yes, it is really important to not take those large time losses, especially at this stage of the race where we're running out of time to recover for Willson, especially with these safety saves from Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie's currently on pace to hit a 28, and there was about a 33-second difference at the climb tree, so still well within striking distance for Willson, but it's slowly getting to the point where his execution is not going to be enough to catch him up. And speaking of that, what a massive death from Wilson.
That's it.
That
Ronnie has all the time in the world.
Yep. He has to have a catastrophic mount for right now, Ronnie does, in order to be able to lose this tournament.
Yeah, this is pretty much all over at this point for Willson, especially with another death. This is so unfortunate.
Yeah, and then he stomps down into the spike. His nerves are in his hands. You can see it in the way that he's moving, making mistakes that he normally doesn't make here in Misty Woods. He is watching the restream. He knows exactly how far behind he was and how far behind he currently is, and he's probably just in his head all sorts right now. I really feel for Willson, but it is now officially Ronnie's tournament to lose.
Yep, and again, he has so much time now that he can just throw away and still be fine. Like that. That death is completely inconsequential for Ronnie at this point. It would take significantly more of those for Willson to come back. Especially, oh no.
Oh my god, poor Willson. Another death in that bike shaft there. You try and rocket jump through that and weave through it, or, you can do the safer strat of charge jumping off the walls. Another death in the spikes there as he stomps. Wilson's tilted. Like, Ronnie could go get a cup of coffee right now. He'd be fine.
And this is the danger of that 3 health in Misty. It's very slightly faster if you can make it through this area cleanly, but if you don't, if you make even one slight mistake, you get reset so far.
Yep, absolutely. There's, runners of even a slightly less caliber will often go for 4 health, picking up that Blade's health cell precisely for Misty Woods, and the fact that these spikes are so close together that even just a slight miscue in your movement will result in a massive reset like that. This is what you're seeing from the free health route, and why these top runners are the top runners, is that they go through this area fearless and usually pull it off.
Yeah, it's just that sometimes when it matters, that just isn't quite there, and unfortunately this is a race you can't just reset at something like that.
Yeah.
So he has to keep going. Meanwhile, Ronnie, already onto Horror Fields, has picked up his final health cell, just has a few more seconds of movement before he's at his door warp and at the end of the game.
Yeah, so because we didn't clean the water coming out of the Ginzu tree, that extra health cell there is necessary in order to be able to get through the poison water in the final escape in the second last room. So Willson now is done with being infinity'd by Misty, and he is heading to pick up his last skill, Light Grenade, which allows us to do those grenade jumps that we were talking about earlier, which are important to save about 40 seconds at the very end. There's actually 2 cutscenes that play back to back, as Ronnie's having a bit of trouble with door work, and you can skip one of those cutscenes by basically grenade jumping past the trigger, so it saves about 40 seconds.
Yep, and that's what we see right at the very end. Ronnie's still going to go for his warmth skip, even with such a massive lead. He does not need to do this, but he's doing it anyways. Why not? He can mess it up all he wants. Willson still hasn't even collected grenade.
Good practice, honestly. Keep your skills sharp. Ronnie's still very much active with running this game. It is worth noting, by the way, like, Willson, except for in this tournament, has more or less kind of just taken a break from Ori since summer. So the fact that he is, putting in sub 30 times, being like not necessarily at his sharpest, is impressive as all get out. So Ronnie, left-hand side, here's the grenade jump we were talking about, where you charge jump after a thrown grenade, and get a lot of speed and allows you to skip that cutscene. So GG to Ronnie, the 3-0 victory, and we'll be posting probably just over a 29 by results.
Yeah, this is 3 absolutely incredible runs in a row from Ronnie. Just a little bit of errors from Willson in early games, game 1 and 2, and then just nerves getting to him in game 3.
Yeah, if Willson basically had like this game 1's early game and this game's early game and then game 1's late game, he probably would have been like right on Ronnie's tail for this one. 28:56, the official final time for UncleRonny. GG to him. And it looks like Willson has potentially had enough. No, he's gonna finish it out. He's just tossing over the GGs.
Yep, always great sportsmanship here from everyone in the community. I cannot stress enough just how amazing all of the runners for E are. A little bit of a flub on that rocky jump for Willson. It's almost there, almost out of Blackroot. Just this boulder escape, this health cell. We're so close. 4th health cell, just one more. Teleporting to Swamp. And on the way to Horu, finally. Willson.
Yeah, so he'll be closing out his run very shortly. He's in the last segment here. Coming to Thornfelt Swamp. Making sure to just stomp that rock out of the way. Doesn't get the rocket jump off the frog, no big deal. He's going to set up for a grenade jump here. And launch his way over. And looks like he's going to get some energy for another grenade jump, maybe. Just do some meme jumps.
I love all the grenade jumps that you can do on the Horu approach. We usually only see the one, but there are several more. It's just really neat to be able to see them. He's gonna go for this one. This one is, you gotta be really fast on this one.
Yeah, the elemental likes to ruin your day here.
There it is. Doesn't quite aim it properly. You can actually shoot all the way through over to that spot that he was in. He does make it to Horu. Just door warp, warmth skip, and the final escape.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning all the grenade jumps, including in the randomizer that we have here, Covert Muffin is probably the guy to talk to. He knows all the grenade jumps that this game has to offer.
Muffin, agreed, is very well known for his grenade jumps. It's like his favorite trick, or something. It must be.
It must. We're pretty sure, you know.
Alright, Willson nails his warmth skip. Maybe, not quite.
Looks like he's just gonna watch it.
Yep.
Go through the vanilla way.
Yeah, there's no reason to go for the warmth skip at this point. Like, it's already over. It's just saves a little bit of time. He's gonna show us the first room of the escape.
Yeah.
This is the movement that Ronnie and Willson have been doing blind up until here. So that's what warmth skip does.
Yeah, and the fact that they can pull that off without dying at all, ever, is extremely impressive.
Not even without dying, without taking damage. Remember,
No
with
kidding.
5 health, they take 4 damage in this water. You can't just take a hit in the escape. You have to reset if you do, because of this health count. Willson is through. He sets up his grenade jump. Doesn't get it first try.
No big deal. He has extra attempts here. Gets it second try. And GG to Willson.
Yeah. Really great show from both of these two. I think this was something I know Willson wasn't really expecting to win. So really, even putting up these times is still so incredible.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, especially given that he's kind of been taking a little bit of a break from Ori for the better part of half a year now. You know, this race aside, obviously, you know, to be able to post anything sub 30 is extremely impressive in this game in general. Never mind doing it a little bit rusty. So, GG to both runners. GG to UncleRonny, taking down the All Skills tournament, getting revenge over Willson from last year. Excellent performance from everybody in this tournament.
Yep, absolutely. And it looks like maybe joined by Willson and possibly Ronnie for an interview. Willson is in our on deck. So we're going to find out if we're going to talk to our runners for a bit, get their thoughts on this series. But while we were waiting to find out if we're doing that, I do want to just shout out again everyone in the community for putting this on. The runners, we have great runners in this community. All the volunteers, we have restreamers, tracking commentators, everyone who helps put this on, the Speed Gaming staff for letting us broadcast on their channels, because without them we wouldn't be able to showcase this amazing speed game to you guys. But really, all of this is such a group effort. We could not do it without the support from the community. So thank you to everyone who helps put these shows on. And not only that, but this is not the end for the Ori tournament season in the spring.
No, that's
even
right.
though All Skills is done, we will be showcasing All Cells No Restrictions starting tomorrow. Do you want to talk about No Restrictions, Shafe?
Yeah, so if you like what you see here, but you're not a fan of walls, All Cells No Restrictions is pretty much your jam. We don't restrict you from doing any of the glitches at all, any of them. So you could say, open up a save in Glades, move over a little bit, stand on a specific spot in a platform, and then suddenly end up in Ginzo for reasons. So it's a really interesting run. It involves collecting, as the name might suggest, all cells, the ability cells, energy cells, and health cells. But we can basically sequence break into any area at any given time where the rules of physics are suggestions at best. We don't like walls.
That's
So.
true. For those who don't know, pretty much every wall in Ori is actually a suggestion. You can go through them almost at will as long as you're allowed to by the category rules.
Yeah.
So, All Cells is a really, really great category. It showcases just about every area in the game, including some of the more forlorn, quote-unquote, areas, like Forlorn itself, and as well as all the way down to Lost Grove. So it's really quite an amazing category, has a fantastic late game, and I'm excited to showcase that tournament. But it sounds like we do have Ronnie and Willson ready to chat, so I'm going to get them in here. And first off, Ronnie, congrats on your win. Ronnie?
Thank you. Thank you so
go.
much.
So, I just want to say, how are you feeling after a clean 3-0, especially coming from losing in Game 5 last year?
Man, I felt like it was gonna be a reverse 2018. Like Willson would almost do a reverse sweep, 2-2, and then I would win the fifth one, but I took the third.
How did you feel about your performance in general throughout the series? I know you had some trouble in Horu in games 1 and 2. It seemed though like the nerves had calmed down a little bit for you by the time Game 3 rolled around.
Yeah, I did calm down by game 2 and 3. Game 1 I was really shaky, like at the beginning, but went away. I'm very satisfied with my performance in my tournament. Mistakes happen.
Right, and Willson is in here as well, so I want to throw it over to Willson for a second. Congratulations on making it to the finals. Put on a great show in games 1 and 2 for sure. A little bit of nerves, it sounded like, in game 3. What was your mindset sort of going into that game 3? And how did that sort of play out?
Well, I wasn't really nervous in game 3. I was more shaking in game 1 actually, or race 1. But I felt like I performed pretty well in the third race. I tried to focus a lot more on my gameplay, like on my own instead of, even though I'm watching the restream, so that I can keep an eye on where Ronnie is. I focused more on what I was doing this time around, so it went pretty well up until the late game. I don't know, something happened in Misty there. I was gonna charge dash a bird. I'm not sure if I was out of energy or if I didn't press the button correctly, or if it's just the input didn't register, but something happened, didn't go off, and that kind of threw me off quite a bit. And I was already behind, and then I was suddenly a lot behind. So I knew at that point it was going to be tough unless Ronnie made a huge mistake behind, but he hadn't really made a huge mistake this match yet. So I wasn't really hoping for that.
Yeah, that said, though, you had told us before the races that you didn't expect to beat Elo, so that you were pretty satisfied, being able to get into the grand finals here and have a rematch against Willson. How did you feel, given that you've kind of been a little bit off of Ori, shall we say, since summer, with your performance here in the tournament overall?
I mean, I'm happy I made it to the finals. As you said, I didn't really expect to beat Elo. Both Elo and Ronnie has been playing this game more than me in this last couple of weeks and months. So, I didn't really expect to make it here. So I'm really happy with that. And that being said, I feel like Ronnie definitely deserves this win. I mean, I've watched him stream. I watched him practice both all skills and all cells categories, and the times he has been putting up is just incredible. So, yeah, congrats, Ronnie. You really deserve it.
Thanks, appreciate it. GG.
And then speaking of all cells, will either of you be joining that tournament starting tomorrow?
Of course.
I mean, I still don't know the category, but I think I'll try. I do know the all cells no out of bounds category route, so if all else fails, I could just do that. I mean, it's valid, right? But yeah, I'm gonna try to learn at least some of the major skips and clips that we use in all cells no restrictions. So, but yeah, I do intend to participate in that one as well.
Well, just because there's no restrictions doesn't mean that you need to go out of bounds, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
It is definitely good to hear that we'll be seeing more of both of you guys. You are clearly two of the best runners in the world in this game, and it has really been a joy to watch the series.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much.
So, I think with that we are just about wrapped up. We do want to again mention that All Cells qualifiers will be starting tomorrow. We will be doing a similar format to the All Skills qualifiers with 3 races spread across a number of qualifier days. For tomorrow, those races for the runners will be at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 10 p.m. I got my 11 and 10 mixed up. All of that is in Eastern Daylight Time. So for the runners who are participating in that tournament, make sure you're paying attention to the qualifiers. We will have more announcements to let you guys know what you need to do to participate. And we will be attempting to broadcast some number of qualifier games, not tomorrow, but some of them, so that those who are interested in following the All Cells tournament will also be able to do that.
Yep, and those dates are going to be coming up Wednesday, March 20th, Saturday, March 23rd, Sunday, March 24th, Tuesday the 26th, Thursday the 28th, and Saturday the 30th. And all the qualifiers are going to be at the same times that Rory mentioned, at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight, 3 p.m., and 10 p.m. So if you're interested in that, make sure you keep an eye out. We're going to be probably rebroadcasting on Speed Gaming as well. Thanks again, Speed Gaming, for hosting this tournament. You guys are gracious hosts as always. And if you're interested in learning any of the categories for Ori, the Discord link was just posted in Twitch chat. This is probably one of the most welcoming communities I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of. So, any questions or concerns that you might have about any of the runs, there's a bunch of people here that are going to be more than happy to help you out. So, thanks, Worry, for helping me out on comms, Night Fighter and Pool for doing the truck, Muffin and Trojan, Shed and Athos for commentating as well, as Grease and Sparrow, and Nans on the truck. We appreciate you guys so much. We had some core people that were away this weekend, and you guys stepped up and filled those shoes. We love you.
Yep, and as well, thanks to Meldon for restreaming all 3 of these matches. We would not be able to broadcast without Meldon restreaming.
Oh, especially with some of the shenanigans that he had going on. Like, everything that could have possibly went wrong at the start did go wrong, and he was on it like a champ. Meldon is a hero, allowing us to bring this game for you here today.
Yep, this tournament would not be possible without all of the volunteers who put in their time in order to help out. So thank you to everyone in the Ori community. You guys are all great.
All right, so that's it for us. Thanks again. We'll see you for some All Cells action in the very near future.